Hi, this is Brian Engler from SCB. Starting the conference line, and we're also on YouTube here. So it looks like we have a couple people in attendance, which is great to see. We'll wait a couple more minutes to get the informational session started. This is for Medford Sync 240 condominiums. We're doing these info sessions all virtually now, and in these, I'll just go through the information packet, go quickly through the application itself. But there is a conference line if you have any questions that you can call into and ask them there. Or there's also this chat box that's over on the right-hand side of the YouTube channel where you can type something in, and I'll read those as we go through the information packet and answer them as they come up. I'd rather have people ask questions, all the way through the presentation rather than wait to the very end. It certainly makes for a more engaging information session than just listening to me talk for 45 minutes or an hour straight. So again, we'll just wait a couple more minutes to see if we have a couple more people joining in, and we will go from there. But again, so the conference line number, if you want to call in, it's on the right-hand side. I put it in the chat field. It's 425-436-6200, and the code is 862627. So generally, my compatriot at SCB Housing, Dave Cashman, runs these. He couldn't do it tonight, so I'm stepping in. But I've probably run, I don't know, 200 information sessions in the 18 years I've been with SCB Housing. I just haven't done them for a little while since we've gone virtual here. So you'll have to forgive me if there's some technical issues. But again, I thank you all for attending and getting some more information. And we'll hang out for another minute or two, just to see if anybody else is joining a little bit late. Are there any questions right off the bat that anyone wants to type in before we even get going? I'd be happy to answer some questions right now. See, I don't even have any comments or anything, so I'm hoping that you can all hear me as well. It sounds like somebody's on the conference line. I just want to check in. You can hear me okay? Terrific. All right. Well, let's get this started. I guess no time like the present, right? So welcome. This is the information session for the Affordable Housing Lottery for 2 affordable units that are being built or that have been built at Sync 240 condos in Medford. Those homes are ready right now. They're fully constructed, so that's great. And we already have our first question, which is, will there be an opportunity to view the unit? Can we see a floor plan of the building, the unit, so we know where it is in the building? That is a very good question, and I asked Dave about that too before this. And I know that if you Google Sync 240 Medford, they do have the, let's see here, they have the residences. Do they have the floor plans for each? No, they just have the typical floor plans here. Let me see if we have the floor plans. We do. We have, let's see here. It looks like we do have the floor plans for the second and third. They're kind of in the overall footprint of the entire building, but we can't send those. What I would say is, if you email us info@sebhousing.com, the staff will can send you a PDF of those floor plans so you can see exactly what they look like and where they are in the building. So we do have a PDF. You know what, let me also look at our own website just to see if those are actually on the listing that Dave and Paulina put on the website under Sync 240. Nope, they're not there. So yeah, so for anybody interested in actually seeing the floor plans, you know, please email us info@scbhousing.com. You can also mention that you're interested in seeing a tour of the unit to apply. I don't think they're doing tours right now because of COVID protocols, but I'm sure that that's something that can be arranged directly with the developer after the lottery. And certainly households who are invited to move forward after the lottery will obviously be able to see the units and get a tour before they have to take any of the next steps. So thank you for that question. So again, we're going to go through the information packet that is available for download on our website. If you don't have that, it's the same email address, info@scbhousing.com, or you can go to our website, which is www.sebhousing.com, and you'll see the Sync 240 listing with the info pack and the lottery application that's on there. The most important thing before I launch into all this that I tell everybody is just get your lottery application in. Everything else is moot if you don't get the application in by the deadline, which is July 7th. The only piece of documentation that is required with this application, and actually, let me make sure before I say that, I believe the only thing that is required, yes, is a mortgage pre-approval. So you don't have to submit any income documentation, asset documentation, tax documentation. You don't have to provide verification that you qualify for local preference. But all that documentation will be required after the lottery to the top households who we asked to move forward. So the lottery application itself should only take about 10 minutes to complete. You don't have to get every single value down to the exact dollar. You just want to be sure that you disclose all the various sources of income and assets on that, and that you do have a mortgage pre-approval. If you don't have a mortgage pre-approval, there is information in the info pack, and I'll touch on that on who we recommend contacting. But that's really the one piece of documentation you want to get started on in order to complete the lottery application. Here's another question. What amount needs to be stated in the mortgage pre-approval? It's a very good question. So let's get started here. So again, these are two units. One is a one-bedroom unit for $270,700. The other is a two-bedroom unit for $297,500. The one-bedroom unit is 1,005 square feet. The two-bedroom unit is 1,258 square feet. These units are the same spec as the market rate units in the building that sold for, you know, 3, 4, 5 times as much as these prices. Maybe not 5 times. I actually don't know what the market rate prices are, but they do have the same level of finish, natural wood flooring, 9-foot ceilings. Kitchens have high-end countertops, stainless steel appliances. Building has a resident lounge, elevator, landscape courtyards, 24-hour fitness center. You know, it's within close proximity to the Middlesex Fells Reservation, which is an absolutely beautiful reservation. I used to spend time up there back when I lived in Davis Square. Ordinary pets are allowed. So these are, you know, these are similar to the market rate homes, and they're just being sold at these sale restricted prices to households who just qualify to meet these program requirements. There are condo fees, which are again listed. This is all just page 3 right here in the information packet. But the condo fees are $256 a month for the one bedroom and $321 a month for a two bedroom. People who are first-time home buyers, you're not used to paying condo fees if you've never owned a place, but you see those numbers and you have to recognize that that is something that you will be paying in cash every single month to the condo association, because you're contributing to the overall budget of the building for general maintenance activities, cost of insurance for the building, common area cleaning, because again, there's common areas here with the fitness center, with the resident lounge. There's landscaping that has to be done. There's snow plowing, snow removal, general repairs and maintenance. So those condo fees are, you will be paying those every month on top of additional housing costs, which include the mortgage, taxes, your own insurance, and everything else. I don't want to get too far into the weeds on what your monthly cost will be to purchase one of these. That is a question that you will ask a lender when you go and you apply through a bank for a mortgage pre-approval. And we'll talk about that in a minute, but there was a question on how much your mortgage pre-approval has to be for. Your mortgage pre-approval, along with the assets that you have to cover the sales price of the unit you're applying for. So if you're applying for just the one-bedroom unit, which is $270,700, again, that's $270,700, your mortgage pre-approval and the amount of the down payment you're going to provide has to be $270,000. So if you get a mortgage pre-approval from a lender that says they're willing to lend you $250,000, well, you have to have $20,700 in your own assets, because that amount of your own assets would be the down payment, and then the balance of that sales price would be covered by the mortgage that the bank provides. So if you have a mortgage pre-approval and you submit a mortgage pre-approval, that's $250,000, and you only have $7,000 in all of your checking accounts, savings accounts, and everything. Well, you combine those two numbers, that's only $257,000, and that's not enough to purchase a unit that's $270,000. Likewise, if you're applying for the two-bedroom unit, that sales price is $297,500. So you need a mortgage pre-approval that either says you're eligible to purchase a unit of up to $297,500, or maybe they'll just say $300,000, or a mortgage pre-approval might say that the mortgage amount that you are eligible for, so it might just say you're eligible for a mortgage of $270,000, but we would look at that, and that wouldn't cover a sales price of $297,000. So we look at the amount of assets that you have to make sure you can make up the difference. So I hope that answers your question about what amount needs to be stated in the mortgage pre-approval. We have another question here: have the condo fees been calculated based on the affordable rate or the market rate? It's also a great question. And let me see here, because I can actually look that up. Let's see, because I will have to look at the scheduled beneficial interest to tell you if it's based on the market rate or the affordable rate. And it is the same amount as a market rate unit, so of a similar size. So looking at the condo fees of similarly sized units, even though those units might be, 2 or 3 times the sales price, because it looks like these the market rate units are selling from between about $600,000 to $900,000. Those are the market rate sales prices. The condo fees in this building are based on the square footage of the units. So they're asking, are there any utilities included in the condo fees? And there aren't. Utilities are paid for by the owner. So utilities are not included in the condo fees. When these affordable units, when they set up these programs, like in a situation where there's condominiums, the condo fees can be set one of 2 ways. They can either be set based on the size of the unit, which is the case here. So a unit that's 1,000 square feet is going to have the same condo fee, whether it's market rate or affordable. And that's what they did here. Or it could be set as a size, proportional to the sales price. And that would mean that if a unit in a condominium building is being sold for $600,000 and has a condo fee of $400 a month, and there's an affordable unit that's being sold at $300,000, which is half the price, the condo fee would be half of the market rate unit's condo fee. So in this example, it'd be $200 a month. This is not done proportionally. It's actually, I think personally, and this is just my personal opinion because developers can do it either way. I think it's great when actually developers set the condo fees based on the size of the unit, which they did here, because for the long-term kind of benefit of the community, it ends up having just, it fosters a just better community growth, because what I've personally found in doing 100 of these over the years is that sometimes and oftentimes the developer will do set condo fees proportional sales price. So in cases where the market rate units are 2 or 3 times the price of the affordable, the condo fees will be 2 or 3 times the size of the affordable condo fees. And over the long term, over years of living together, sometimes those market rate people feel like they're subsidizing the affordable homeowners. And sometimes the affordable homeowners get frustrated because they say, look, I'd be willing to pay the same condo fees, but it's written into the deed this way. And it can cause, just some friction. Whereas when everybody's paying the same amount, it just really does foster, in my opinion, a healthier community. But, there's pros and cons on both sides. Another thing that's important to recognize is if they did set the condo fees proportionally, and I could bore you to tears with this if you're not bored already, but basically for every dollar that they would lower a condo fee, that's almost an extra dollar that you would be paying on your 30-year fixed rate mortgage. So if your condo fees were $150 less a month here, the sales prices would be actually higher than what they've been set at, and they'd be higher to the degree that your monthly mortgage amount would probably be higher by about $150. So in this program, I mean, it's an amazing opportunity, but they're going to get you one way or the other. You pay $150 less in condo fees. Sales price is going to be higher to the degree that your monthly mortgage payment will probably be higher by about $150. So at the end of the day, the total amount that you're paying per month towards housing costs really doesn't change depending on condo fees. But I don't want to get that too far down that. I'm happy to answer questions about condo fees if you have them, but I still want to kind of lightly touch on all different aspects of this, and then I can drill further down into any other aspect that you're interested in. So we got another question. Who is a property manager of the building? That will influence the budget and condo fees going forward. A very good question. I do not know who the property manager is. We can find that out for you. If you want to send an email again to info@SCB Housing, we don't know that level of detail. Generally, I will say this though, it shouldn't really matter who the property manager is, at least for the first 10 years or so of the building, because this is brand new construction, nothing should really break. And more importantly, when the state reviews the condo budget that is submitted, that establishes the condo fees that are going to be paid, they do a review to make sure that the developer has properly accounted for all the different various expenses that have to be covered. So like I said, there's hazard insurance, there's common area cleaning, there's landscaping, there's snow plowing and removal, and there's general wear and tear on the building and repairs and maintenance, same as like elevators are going to need maintenance every year. The air compressors or the air condensers for AC in the central part of the building will need maintenance and all that. That budget that is put together has to be passed and approved by the state to make sure that the condo budget is properly funded, so that in the second year of the building, they're not saying, oh, you know what, we didn't realize it snows in Massachusetts and that we were going to have to pay for plowing 5 to 10 times a year. That is already reviewed and budgeted. So a management company shouldn't burn through any of those through those condo fees. Now in the first 5 or 10 years, there's nothing in a building like this that really should be a surprise in putting together a condo budget. But those are also great questions. And I should note that a household that go forward and being able to purchase one of these units will be given the condo budgets when they're signed the purchase and sale agreement, and when they're going to the bank and prior to closing. And if there's any issues with that, those can and will be brought up by a discerning buyer if they have any questions about the condo documents and whether or not they're properly funded. If they feel like they're not, and I can tell you the condo budget's not going to change because most of these units have already been sold. But if they're not, that is just something that is brought to the seller's attention and part of the items that will get reconciled between you and your lender and the seller prior to closing. We got another question here. Will affordable unit owners be subject to special assessments outside of condo fees? So these are very good questions. So they will be, because everybody who's there are 16 units in this building. Everybody pays a condo fee. If there's special assessments, if in year 10 they say, you know what, we actually need to replace the roof, or we need to replace a couple solar panels, because this is a highly efficient, I know they're going for LEED Gold certification building. There might be some maintenance that has to be done on that, and they might recognize that the condo fees or the condo budget isn't sufficient to cover all the maintenance and all the plowing and landscaping that have to be done, and they might have to increase it by 10%. And if that happens, every single owner in the building would have their condo fee increased by 10%. It wouldn't be just the market rate people have to pay an extra 10% to their monthly condo fees, and it also wouldn't be just the affordable buyers have to increase it. You're all in the same boat together. So special assessments, not just at this property, but anywhere that you buy in that is a condominium, special assessments will be reflected the same percentage for every unit in the building. So it won't be the same dollar amount. It's always a percentage of what you're paying. So if the condo fee or if the condo budget has to increase by 20% for whatever reason, then everybody's fees in the building would increase by 20%. Do condo fees change every year? So they don't. I would say every like 5 years or so, the condo association will do a special assessment just to make sure that they're capturing all the costs and stuff. But generally, for a brand new building, the condo fees shouldn't change for a while, because there shouldn't be any unexpected costs. If something absolutely horrific happens that's not covered by the condo insurance, and that would be a very rare case, but the fees could change. But you should expect to pay these fees at least for the first couple of years, and really generally probably the first 5 or 7 years. There really shouldn't be any major changes. Now, that being said, we have crazy weather now, and if we get 30 snowstorms a year for the next couple of years, then the condo budget will have to be adjusted, because you'll be paying for a lot more plowing and shoveling that was initially budgeted. And so maybe in year 3 or year 4, if it's been storm after storm after storm, there might have to be a reassessment of the condo budget, and maybe the fees would go up. We have somebody asking, do you have to be a Medford resident to apply? You don't. So let's get into that. So we have the condos, we have the prices. You can Google Sync 240. You can see the building. It's a beautiful, cool, modern building. These units are very light. They're full of natural light. They have great finishes. You can see that. You can see some typical 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom layouts. But if you want to see the particular layouts or the floor plans, you can email us at info@scb housing, and you can, we can send you the PDFs that show those layouts. But so the whole process here is, you have a lottery application, which you download from our website, and you complete the lottery application along with a mortgage pre-approval from a bank. And we review that, and we determine if you're eligible to be entered into the lottery. You do not have to be a resident of Medford to apply. People who are residents of Medford who do need a 2-bedroom unit will get priority over households who are not residents of Medford. So there is priority given to a 2-bedroom unit for households who both A, are residents of Medford or work in Medford. And I'm missing one of the local preference criteria, which is it's live, work, or hold on, let me look at that real quickly. For local preference, it is, oops. Let me get this. Current resident of Medford, an employee of a business located in Medford, including a city employee, or if a household is a student in the Medford school system, including MECO students. So households who meet any of those three criteria, who also need a two-bedroom unit, meaning that they have a household composition that, where two people are going to be living in separate bedrooms, that they will get priority over non-Medford residents. But even if you're not a Medford resident, certainly apply. I think to date we only have about 12 completed applications, so you certainly have a chance of getting a unit regardless, depending on how everything shakes out. We asked, so is there no local preference drawing for the one-bedroom unit? That's correct. The property can only give local preference to 70% of the units. In this case, there's only 2 units. So they could only give local preference to the 2-bedroom unit. So there is no local preference for the 1-bedroom unit. Medford residents, non-residents will all have equal opportunity. Everybody who applies for the lottery will have an equal shot at the 1-bedroom unit. It'll just be based entirely on where they are drawn in the lottery the night of the lottery. So you complete your application, you get your mortgage pre-approval, which I'll talk about in a minute, and you submit it to SCB Housing. You can submit it by emailing it in to info@SCB Housing. You can mail it in to our offices at 257 Hillside Ave in Needham, Mass. All that's on the first page of the application. You can also drop it off at our Dropbox. That's at that Needham location on 257 Hillside Ave. And the staff will review it, and they'll review it to make sure that you're eligible based on the various qualifying criteria, which is, are you a first-time home buyer? You have to be a first-time home buyer, meaning you can't currently own a home, or if you do, you meet one of the exemptions that's on page 6 of the info packet, which I'll be happy to talk about. So people have to be first-time home buyers, meaning that they can't have owned a home in the past 3 years, or if they do currently own a home, they're losing it through divorce or separation. Again, you can find the exceptions on page 6 of the info packet. We review if your income is below the maximum allowable income limits, which are $70,750 for a one-person household, going all the way up to $101,050 for a four-person household. We make sure you're not over the asset limit, which is that your total amount of assets can't be more than $75,000. If anybody has any questions about that, we can talk about that. Households have to submit a mortgage pre-approval that covers the cost of the unit they're applying for. And then households can't have a financial interest in the property. So we go through all those different criteria, and so long as you have a mortgage pre-approval that covers the sales price, that the income that you disclose in the application doesn't put you over those income thresholds, which I just went over, between $70,750 for one person up to $101,050 for four people, and that your assets that you disclose are less than $75,000, and you do qualify as a first-time home buyer, you will be entered into the lottery. You'll get an email from us if you provide an email address that gives you your lottery application number that's going to be entered into the lottery the night of, let's see, the lottery is the night of, all applications have to be in by July 7th, and the lottery itself is on July 19th. So if you're qualified, you get an application number, and that application number will just be a number like A and then 3 digits after it. That number doesn't mean anything other than it's the order that we received your completed application, and it's just so that when we enter you into the lottery, it's done anonymously so that we're not calling out names when we do the lottery itself. So, we might end up with 30 different application numbers in there, and they'll just be numbers A001 through A030, and we draw those all randomly out of a box on the night of July 19th, and that establishes the order, that establishes a lottery order. That order that people are drawing out of the box will actually be the exact order that opportunity is given for the one-bedroom unit, because there's no household size preference for that and there's no local preference for that. The two-bedroom unit, establishing that waiting list, is a little bit more complicated, because we basically look at that order that the households were drawn in the lottery, and the first household who needs a two-bedroom unit, who also qualifies for local preference, will have the top position on the waiting list for the two-bedroom unit. So if we run a lottery and the first number drawn is 3, A3, and the second number drawn is A7, and the third number drawn is A25, and we look, and the household who's A3 is only a one-person household and they don't need a two-bedroom unit, and the household A7 is a two-person household but they don't live in Medford, and the household A25, even though they're the third number drawn, they both need a two-bedroom unit, and they qualify for local preference. The top of the waiting list for the two-bedroom unit will be A25, because even though they're drawn third, they were the first household drawn in the lottery who actually needs that two-bedroom unit and is local preference. And so in that manner, we end up populating the two-bedroom waiting list. None of you need to, whoever's in the lottery, need to actually worry about the actual mechanics of that. But it is important to know, just for that we're fully transparent. But the night of the lottery, we send around the waiting list to everybody that were established the night of the lottery, so you can see exactly where you are on the waiting list for, a one-bedroom and the two-bedroom unit. And that's something else I should note, is that you can apply for both units. If you're interested in both, apply for both units. Even if you're just a one-person household, checking off the box that you're interested in the two-bedroom unit will have no impact at all on on how you're drawn or what order you are on the one-bedroom list. So even if you're just remotely interested in the two-bedroom unit, you should apply for both. So I had a question here on if you exceeded the income limit of past years but not in 2021 or 2020, can you still apply? Great question. You absolutely can. So I was just talking about the metrics that we use in going through the application and how we put you in and how we screen the lottery application. And I talked briefly about how the units are, how the waiting lists are established. And I'll get back to that question very, very quickly, Sarah, or in just a few moments, about what you should actually put in the application. So just real quickly though, after the lottery, we will have a one-bedroom waiting list. We'll have a two-bedroom waiting list. We are going to reach out to probably the top 5 households on the one-bedroom waiting list and the top 5 households on the two-bedroom waiting list and say, congratulations, you have a high enough position on each waiting list. You now have to go through the full income certification with SCB Housing so we can confirm all the claims that you made in your lottery application are true. And that's when you have to submit all this documentation, and you'll get a guide when you're entered into the lottery on all the information that you have to submit. But it will be your 5 most recent pay stubs. It'll be 3 months of bank statements for each and every account that you have. So if you have 2 different checking accounts and you have a savings account, you have to submit 9 months of bank statements. 3 months for your first checking account, 3 months for your auxiliary checking account, and 3 months for your savings account. You have to complete a profit and loss statement. You'll have to supply supporting documentation for your profit and loss statement if you are self-employed. I should qualify that. You have to supply 3 years of your tax transcript. So if you have completed your 2020 taxes, you'll be submitting your 2018, 2019, and 2020 taxes. And I can go through all that information too, but I don't want to get people too bogged down on all the information that is required after the lottery to those top households, because that shouldn't dissuade you at all from applying right now. Again, with the lottery application, all you have to put together all the only documentation you have to supply is mortgage pre-approval. And again, once you're entered into the lottery and you get your application number back from us, we'll also give you a guide for the documentation that you should gather. And you can review that documentation guide at that time. And we strongly recommend that you start gathering all that various information that's required, because if you are drawn early enough in the lottery and you have a high enough position on a waiting list and we contact you to move forward, the last thing you want to do is say, oh my goodness, like I don't have any of this information, because you're only going to be given about a week to 10 days to gather everything. So you're going to want to have a file with all that information in, so so you can supply it. And in general, if you're looking for affordable housing and if you're applying for this opportunity, clearly you should have a file of all your income and asset and tax documentation, because that kind of is the hardest part about this whole entire process. The application itself is something that, once you filled out one of these, it's going to be easy to fill out a lot of different ones for other opportunities. The hard part is gathering all that income and asset and tax documentation and supplying that and verifying your income to get to the next step. So anyway, so that is important. So I'm going to wrap up real quickly the whole process of, we invite households, the top 5 households on both waiting lists, to submit income asset tax documentation. We review them. We let them know if their information is incomplete, if they're missing documentation. They'll be given a couple of days. They'll be given 5 days to resubmit any missing documentation. And ultimately, the household who submits all the information by the given deadlines and still verifies that they're income and asset eligible and has the highest position on the waiting list will be allowed to move forward in reserving one of these units. And we'll give you plenty of information at that later juncture, later in July, when the time comes, about those steps. I don't want to get too bogged down on those now, because again, the most important thing is getting your lottery application in. Now let's talk about that lottery application, because there are a couple of questions there. The lottery application basically asks you questions on what your various income is and also what your various assets are. Assets is easier because the asset value is what your current value is in any assets that you have. Your checking account, balance is what you're going to put in for your checking account. Your savings account balance is what you put in for your savings account. The net cash value of your 401k accounts, that's what you're going to put in for your 401k. Now, income's a little bit more tricky, because income is what you expect to earn over the next 12 months. So perhaps you lost a job, or you had a job where you made $80,000 a year in 2020, and now you have a new job, and the taxes that you have for 2020 show that you have wages and income of $85,000, let's call it. But starting in March of this year, you change jobs, and your new job, you're making $65,000 a year. Well, your monthly income should be based on that $65,000. Or let's keep it simple. Let's say the job, you earn $60,000 a year, which would be $5,000 a month. For that job, you should put $5,000 a month. And it's gross income. It's not taxable, or it's not after tax income. So if you're earning $5,000 a month gross wages at that job, that's what you put in the income table. Now, clearly, unfortunately, that's not what you're taking home, because the government takes a bite out of that. So if you're earning $5,000 a month, your take home might be closer to $4,000 a month, or it might be closer to $3,500 a month. But you're still putting $5,000 on the income table for that. So again, this is a projection of your expected income over the next 12 months. We need to see your bank statement. We need to see the taxes for various reasons. We have to line your taxes up with your W-2s to make sure that you're disclosing all the various jobs that are being worked. There's other questions. We need to verify that you don't currently own a home, which your taxes would show, and everything else. So your taxes are supplied as a check to verify the claims that you make in your lottery application. But again, the income that you put in the lottery application should be, a projection of what you expect to make over the next 12 months. We have another question. If for any reason something in the application is missing, do we get notified? Yes, you do. So with the lottery application, the only thing that would be missing is a mortgage pre-approval. And so if you submit the lottery application without a mortgage pre-approval, you'll get an incomplete notice from us that says your lottery application is incomplete. We don't have a mortgage pre-approval for you. Once you get your mortgage pre-approval in, you're eligible. You get an application number from us, and the lottery is run, and you're lucky enough to be invited after the process. And we say now you have to submit all your income and asset and tax documents, and you submit those to us. Absolutely, 1 out of every 100 people actually gets us everything that we need to see. So households will be given another opportunity to submit missing documentation. There are hard deadlines though for that. So after, I think, after 2 weeks of notifications to you, you need to get, you'll be given a hard deadline that you have to get us absolutely everything else that's missing in, and that you don't get unending opportunities to resubmit documentation. And that's why it's important to try to submit everything as much as possible in your first go, because applicants will get frustrated when if they just submit some submit pay stubs and they submit bank statements, and we say, well, your application's incomplete, we don't have your taxes and your W-2s and everything else. And then they submit their taxes and W-2s, and we say, wait a second, it looks like you actually have other jobs or sources of income based on your taxes that we didn't know about. They weren't on your application. They weren't, you didn't submit anything initially in your first submission. So now you actually have to submit bank statements from these other assets that we now know you have, and we also have to submit pay stubs from this other job that we now know that you have. And households might say, well, why didn't you ask for that the first time? When you told me my application was incomplete. To which we say, well, we didn't know. You didn't disclose it on your application, and it wasn't reflected in any of the information that we got the first time. So it's just me saying, submit everything that you can right off the bat. You know your own income and asset situation better than we do. It's always in your interest to disclose everything up front, because we all inevitably, everything comes to the surface, and we'll find all sources of income and assets. And so, but if you do your best and you happen to be missing one bank statement because it slips your mind, and you miss a couple pay stubs because maybe you didn't think that they were needed because every single pay stub for the past 3 years has been exactly the same, that's totally understandable. And, you're still given another opportunity to submit. But just know that households will be given a handful of opportunities to submit, but there does come a point, because the process has to move forward, that if every time they're submitting something that we're discovering something new, households will be given a hard deadline at which that they have to absolutely submit everything. The takeaway on this is, I keep on saying it, get your lottery application in, get your lottery application number from us that says you're eligible, and you'll get a documentation gathering guide that outlines everything that we need to see. And if you complete your lottery application in the next month, and you get that guide in the next month, you'll have about a month to gather all this necessary information. So you'll have plenty of time to get everything. So I hope that answers your question. We have some other ones here. Do we need first-time homebuyer certification? Great question. You don't. Not at this point. And you actually, to qualify for this affordable housing lottery, you actually don't need first-time homebuyer certification. That being said, the lender that you go with might require that you need a first-time homebuyer certificate before you close on the loan. So that is ultimately a question for the bank that you get your mortgage pre-approval from, and you end up getting your mortgage from. And I'll get back to that right now. We have one more question on the application. Who is head of household if you are a married couple? You're both heads of household. So just put both of you as head of household. It doesn't matter if you put your name on page 2 as the applicant's name, or your spouse's name. And similarly, in that table that's on page 2, you just put your name and your head of household, and your spouse's name and head of household also. So you're both heads of household in that situation. But going back to the question on, do you need first-time homebuyer certification? So let's talk about the mortgage pre-approval. Let's see here. In the information packet, we do have a mortgage pre-approval page that talks about these mortgage pre-approval standards. This is page 10. But you can see on this that it's you have to get a mortgage pre-approval for a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. It can't be more than 2 points above what the current Freddie Mac rate is. I can tell you right now what the Freddie or the Mass Housing, the current rate for a mortgage is 2.99%. So your 30-year fixed rate mortgage pre-approval can't have a rate that's above 4.99%. It can't be an FHA or a VA loan, just because unfortunately the program itself doesn't have an issue with FHA or VA loans, but FHA you will not be able to use that product to close on a unit that has a deed restriction. And these units all have a deed restriction, and I can talk about that at the end too. But so you can't have an FHA or a VA loan. And you have to put down at least 3%. You can't provide a mortgage pre-approval that's 100% of the sales price of the property. That you're planning on financing 100% the cost of the property. You have to put down 3%. So in this case, for the 2-bedroom unit, you have to have at least $6,000 in a down payment, because that's 3% of the overall sales price. And then $9,000 would be 3% on a $300,000 home. And then you can get a pre-approval for 97%. So in order to get a mortgage pre-approval, in the info packet on page 10, we have a list. There's on the mhp.net website, there's a list of lenders who are excellent lenders. They offer what's called the one mortgage, which is like the gold standard of mortgages for first-time home buyers and affordable housing, because they have great rates and they have they're able to waive certain fees for you, and you should talk to your lender about that. But even if you don't qualify for what's called the one mortgage, there are other mortgage products out there. But the main thing is you want to, the two main takeaways of this info session. One is, work on getting your lottery application in as quickly as possible. And in order to submit that, you need to have a mortgage pre-approval. And so the second takeaway is, if you haven't already gotten a mortgage pre-approval, get started on that immediately. Call a lender that's either on the MHP website. Again, that's on page 10. We have a link here. Or we also have Diana from Boston Private. We have her email address and her phone number that's listed here. And Boston Private's a great financial institution. They love lending to first-time home buyers, and they're very familiar with affordable housing. We recommend going with them too. Now, that being said, you can get a mortgage pre-approval from anybody that you want. If you have a relationship with your bank, if you bank at Citizens Bank, or Santander, you can talk to them and get a mortgage pre-approval from them. We just really strongly recommend that you get a mortgage pre-approval from somebody who has familiarity with affordable housing. If you have an uncle or a friend of a friend who says they can give you a great rate, unless they work for a financial institution who has done lending on affordable housing, you might end up running into some issues later on down the line, because they might say, yeah, we'd love to be able to lend you money to purchase a unit for $300,000 in a building where those units are going for $900,000, because they think, heck, we don't even care if you qualify. If you default on the loan, we're gonna be able to foreclose on you, and lucky us, we're going to get a $900,000 unit for $300,000. And they don't understand that these units are deed restricted and will always have to be sold at an affordable price. Now, the big banks understand all these rules and restrictions, and so they're going to actually do a proper vetting of you and ask all the right questions when it comes to giving you a mortgage pre-approval, which is why I recommend going with somebody like Boston Private or any of those lenders that are found on the mhp.net website. So let's see. And so going back to the first-time homebuyer certificate, what you'll find is a lot of these lenders will say, you're pre-approved based on the strength of your own credit, based on the strength of your own income. You know, if you do end up getting to purchase a unit either at this property or somewhere else down the line, in order to get this particular mortgage product that we're giving you, you have to take a first-time homebuyer certification class. And that will be something that you just have to do prior to closing on your unit. You don't need to do that before the lottery. You don't need to do that before you do the income certification with SEB Housing. It will just be something that you'll need to keep in the back of your mind, and you'll be talking to your lender throughout this process. If you get to buy one of these, you'll just need to remember, okay, once I put down a deposit on this and I'm working towards closing on this, my lender told me I have to get a first-time homebuyer certificate. So I better get started on that. So I don't want to delay the closing in August or September or whenever those closings will be. Let's see. We're actually all caught up with questions. So we've talked about the mortgage pre-approval. I know I'm going through things pretty quickly. I think it's really important to note that all of this is in the information packet, everything I've talked about. And if you have any questions at all about anything that I said tonight, or even you just have, you recognize that you forgot to ask something tomorrow, email info@SEB Housing. We have a staff. We generally get back to people within a couple hours. It's, you know, if it's during working hours, if it's at the beginning of the day, you should be responded to that day. If you email later in the day, you know, or certainly after we're closed, then it'll probably be, you know, you'll probably get your response the next day. But if you have any questions, info@SEB Housing is a great resource. We have a whole staff that all they do is reply to your emails. So, you know, you can always ask questions about that. I'm trying to think of, and then the final thing that I'll say about the units, and I touched on it before, is that these units are deed restricted. And that means that if you get the opportunity to purchase one in like the 2-bedroom unit for almost $300,000, if you choose that you want to sell the unit in 5 years, let's say you decide you need a bigger place, you need a 3-bedroom place or a 4-bedroom place. When you go to sell that unit, you will sell it at an affordable sales price. You will contact, there's a person at DHCD, the state of Massachusetts, who helps all the buyers who are in a unit under their program, because this is a state of Massachusetts Department of Housing and Community Development program. You'll contact them and say, hey, DHCD, I want to sell my home. They'll say, great, we'll help you market it. We'll help you find a buyer. We're going to set the affordable sales price for you. And the affordable sales price at that time will be based off of how much area median income has increased over between the time you purchase the unit and you're going to sell the unit. For a while, area median income in Boston only went up about 1% or 2% a year. It's crazy times, and now it's going up like between 5 and 10% a year. So if you decide to sell your unit in, you know, let's say 4 years, area median income might have increased 20 percentage points since that time. And so that would mean that you'd be able to sell your unit for 20% more than what you paid for it. So if your unit was $300,000 when you purchased it, a 20% increase on that would be $60,000. So you'd be selling the unit for $360,000 in 4 years. In this example, this is just an example. There's no guarantees that'll be $360,000. Maybe it'll be $330,000. Maybe it'll be $400,000 if area median income, you know, increases a huge amount. But the point is, you are not ever going to be able to turn around and sell this $300,000 unit for $600,000, if that's what a market rate equivalent is, or $900,000. Maybe 20 years from now, the unit will be worth $600,000. But you know, you're not going to see the crazy appreciation that you see when when the real estate market is super hot and sales prices are jumping, 20, 40 percentage points a year or over 2 years. But you will see a return on your equity. You will see these sales prices increase. These prices, if we were doing this lottery a couple of years ago, the prices for the $300,000 unit would probably be $250,000 or $260,000. So already, they are increasing in value. So that is the return that you would see when you go to sell. And that is just important to recognize that there are steps in reselling. There are restrictions on how much the sales price can increase because it is tied to an area of median income. It is not tied to the real estate market in general. All of that is also covered in the last 2 pages of the information packet. So you can always review that, and you can always email us with more questions about that. We have another question here. How long will it take to sell the home? Do we need to pay any fees to DHCD for helping us to sell the home? It's another great question. And generally, it's impossible to know how long it takes to sell the home. I would say that in a place like Medford, that's desirable, and certainly a unit like this, which is high end, it's going to be a lot easier to resell an affordable unit than it would, say, if you were buying an affordable home in Springfield, Massachusetts, where the affordable sales price might only be $50,000 or $100,000 less than the market rate equivalent, and where there's just not as much demand. So in general, you should expect it to take a couple months to find a buyer. DHCD does actually take a fee let's see here. They do take a fee. I think it's at 2.5% that they get when it comes to sell the home. So, so DHCD does take a fee, and that's the state. They take a fee in helping find the buyer and vet them, and helping you with that resale process. So that 2.5% fee is lower than the 5% fee that market rate buyers have to pay when they go to sell their unit, but there is a resale fee associated with that. Let's see. Yep. So I hope that answers the question. Again, I know it's a lot of information. I've been talking for an hour straight. But there's just a lot of info to go through, and these info sessions generally, they generally last an hour. So again, the general overview: the sales price is $297,500 for a 2, $270,700 for a 1. Page 2 of the info packet has those details on it. The mortgage pre-approval: if you don't have a mortgage pre-approval, contact your lender right now. Tomorrow, first thing, get that process started, because you do need a mortgage pre-approval with the lottery application. Once you have that piece of paper, you can complete the lottery application and submit it to us, and then we can review you based on the income and asset eligibility that you disclose in that lottery application. The disclosures you put in that lottery application for assets: it's your present value of all the assets that you have, which is checking accounts, savings accounts, bonds, CDs, retirement accounts, and all the income that you disclose. That's the projection of how much you anticipate earning over the next 12 months at your current job. If you're receiving unemployment, that has to go on there. If you're receiving workman's comp, that has to go on there. If you're receiving support from a family member and a couple $100s a month, that's added on there. Fixed income, that's included. Self-employment income, this is important. It's your net self-employment wages. So if you're earning $40,000 a year as an Uber driver, but that's your total revenue, and after you deduct all your expenses, that's actually only coming out to $25,000, or let's call it $24,000 a year. That's $2,000 a month that you're earning as an Uber driver, so that's what you would put in the application. It's For all other income, it's gross. The only thing that is net wages are if you're self-employed, you are allowed to take those expenses. It is the bottom line item on when you complete your profit and loss report. It's basically, your after expense wages that you report. Let's see, how would we be notified of the lottery results or position on the waiting list? Snail mail, email, phone. Good question. So when we run the lottery, and Dave in our office runs the lottery, because we know everybody's so eager, and you can watch it when you get your lottery application number. You'll be given the link and the information to watch the lottery, from the comfort of your own home. Dave will process all that information that night, and if we have your email address, you will be sent the waiting lists that night, so you'll know exactly where you are in the waiting list. The invitations to the top households will go out within a couple days after the lottery. Certainly, if you're the #1 position on the waiting list, you'll know that you're getting an invitation. If you're a little bit further down, you'll just have to look at the waiting list, because the waiting list will actually specify the households who are being invited. If you're like the 3rd position on the waiting list, it might say waiting on households above to apply, or it might actually say, invitation is being invited to move forward in the process. Will receive an invitation in the next couple days. But if you give us your email address, we will just send you the lottery results by email. We don't database your email address for any other mailings or any other notifications. We only use it to correspond with this lottery and this lottery only. So you don't worry about, us spamming you or anything. We don't do that. But again, get the lottery application in. That is the most important thing. It will generally take us, I would say, anywhere between like 2 to 5 days to get back to you once we receive your lottery application, sometimes same day, to let you know if you're missing anything. And the only thing that you'd be missing is either if you fail to complete a field in the lottery application, or you don't have your mortgage pre-approval. If you are totally eligible and complete, you'll get a lottery application number from us, and then you can watch the lottery. And then we'll go from there, and we'll invite the top households to submit income and asset documentation. Again, when you get your lottery application number, you'll get a guide from us that says, here's all the income and asset and tax documentation that will be required from you after the lottery if you are a high enough household on the waiting list to be invited to move forward. And so I really would encourage everybody to go through that and start gathering all that information so you have a file ready to submit. Because the last thing that you would want is to be given an opportunity to move forward in this and not have all the necessary income and asset documentation because you didn't gather anything at the time that we prompted you to. So preference for people of color, veterans, or disabilities? That's a good question. So in these 40B, these affordable housing lotteries, there's very rarely a veterans preference. That's generally for a totally different housing program. So there isn't for that. Households with disabilities, in this home ownership opportunity, there isn't any preference. In rental lotteries, where that they have units that are built with features for the people with disabilities in them, households that need those features will get priority for those in those rental developments. So larger rental developments, some units will have wider doorways, lower countertops, they won't have lower cabinets, like for people who are in wheelchairs. So in those lotteries, people with disabilities will be given preference for those particular units. These units do not have special features. These 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units do not have any special features in them. So there's no preference for those. Now, for people of color, minorities, we ask those questions because there is a local preference pool. The local preference pool has to have the same percentage minority representation in it as the surrounding area. The surrounding area for Boston in the Medford surrounding area is 27%. So if we have a local preference pool and there's 5 people in the local preference pool, let's keep as 4 people in the local preference pool, and none of them are minorities, and so we have, or even let's say one of them is a minority. Well, let's say none of them are minorities. So we have a 0% minority representation in a local preference pool of 4 people that all happen to not be minorities. We would take all the minority households who didn't qualify for local preference, and we would do a drawing and add those households to the local preference pool until we had a representation in that pool that exceeded 27%. So in this example, if we had 4 households and they're all white households in the local pool, we would do a minority drawing. We'd have to draw 2 names out of that drawing, because if we just drew 1 minority name and added it to the local preference pool, that would be 1 out of 5 households now in the local preference pool that are minorities. And that's only a 20, right, 1 out of 5 is actually only a, let me sure I'm doing the math right, a 20% representation, which wouldn't be enough. So we'd have to draw another name out of the local preference, out of the minority pool, and add it to the local preference, so that we'd have 2 minority households out of 6 total. We started with 4 people who were all white, and we added 2 minority households. So now we have 6 total households, and 2 of those households are minority, which would give us a representation of 33%. And therefore, that local preference pool would have a proper representation of minority households. And so in that way, those minority households who are not local would be given a preference through that local preference pool. And that is how they get, that is how minority households can get preference through these drawings. But that is the only way right now, through that local preference drawing. So I hope I answered your question. There are no priorities for veterans or people with disabilities. And then minorities can get local preference if they don't have local preference, depending on what the minority percentage is in the existing local preference pool that we have when the application period closes. Are there any other questions? Again, you can go on to looking at the Sync website. It is sync240condos.com. And you can see what the units look like. They are beautiful units. It's a cool location. And again, it's close to, it is close to the Middlesex Fells Reservation. You know, it's close to, relatively close to 93. So, you know, it's pretty close to Malden too. So it's a beautiful building. We got another question. Thanks very much for all the information. Have a great night. Well, you have a great night too. Appreciate everybody joining. I know, again, I know I kind of go through this quickly. It's because we hope that you have downloaded the information packet, and that's kind of the reference tool, the reference guide for you that does cover everything that I said. You can watch this recording again. It stays up on YouTube. Goodness knows there's a lot better content now these days on TV and online. So, you know, I can't imagine anybody watching this again. But and again, I can't emphasize enough, we are available to answer your questions. You can call the phone number 617-782-2300. You can ask to talk to Jane, but really the fastest way to get a response is to email us, and that's info@scbhousing.com. I think you'll find that we are very responsive and can get back to you on everything. Let's see. Preserve. Yeah. Yeah, this is about the full extent of my online presence is doing this this info session. I do not have any other social media, but the but yeah, but so I hope I answered all your questions. You know, we're going on 70 minutes now. I feel like, you know, there's a lot of information in the info packet, the application. Again, just take your best shot at the application. You can round to the nearest hundredth dollar. You don't have to get it down to the pennies. Yeah, you know, even if you're slightly off in your calculations, that's not an issue. Ultimately, the way that your final income certification will be determined will be based on the supporting documentation that you provide, but you do have to at least disclose all the various sources of income and assets on the lottery application. What you don't want to do is forget, you know, a job, or, you know, forget that you have some self-employment gig that, you know, you only made $2,000 that last year, so you didn't really think that matters. You really have to disclose everything. So just be sure to do that. Your chance of getting one of these units is better than you think. We thought at this point we'd have 50 eligible households, or honestly even 100, because these no documentation lotteries end up generally having much higher turnout. Sometimes because of the pandemic, and, you know, people, goodness knows, are dealing with 100,000 different things right now. Some of those can be employment related. Some of them are, you know, housing related, and they're not looking to move. But we only have a couple dozen households right now, so your chances are good. So we do encourage all of you to apply. I was going to say 8, but we just lost one, so all 7 of you. So are there any other questions? I think I got all these questions. I think I got to all of them. Condo fees, sales prices, special assessments, home buyer certificate. Says, thank you very much for all this great information. Okay, well, we're good, everyone. I mean, I'll hang out, stare at the screen for a little bit, but that basically wraps it up. That concludes it. Email us if you have more questions, info@scbhousing.com. And I wish you the best of luck. You have great chances and fabulous opportunity. It's a beautiful building. 2 people are going to be very happy living there, I'm sure. So best of luck with everything. And that concludes the info session. Again, get the lottery application in. The deadline's July 7th. It's going to be here sooner than you think. So try to get everything in the next week. So we can let you know if anything's missing from your application, which again would either just be the pre-approval, or you forgot to complete a field, or you forgot to sign it, or something simple like that. That's it. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to hang up the phone line now. And I'm going to just look at my work email for a couple minutes and see if anything else comes through while we're wrapping this up. But otherwise, I'm going to turn this off in 2 minutes. So if you think of anything, let me know. All right, everyone, have a great night. I'm going to shut this down. Be well. Good luck.